All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Friday, April 28th. We got a near full MLB slate to jump into today. We have 14 games to jump into. Like we always do, we're going to go through each and every one of those games. I'm going to give you my lean or leans on the games. We'll talk about it, but all my final plays, what I'm actually going to be rolling with, those will live in the pinned comment, and I update that throughout the day. Yesterday, we're coming off a winning night. We go 3-2, and damn near both of the losses that we had could have been wins. The Angels had a 2-run lead for the majority of that game. They kind of choke it away, still get the win, but nonetheless only win by 1 run. And then the Tigers, for I want to say 6 or 7 innings, actually had a 3-0 lead, then a 3-2 lead, and then they ultimately get beat like 7-3 or something like that. But we'll take the 3-2 profitable day for sure. After 2 days ago was not a profitable day, so we're in the green after last night, guys. So let's go ahead and do that again tonight. Like I said, jam-packed slate, 14 games, a near full slate. And if you guys do want to go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button, it would mean the absolute world to me. We're on the way to 23,000 subscribers, which is absolutely mind-blowing. And yeah, go ahead and hit that like button. You guys have been crushing it as of late. And then also, before we get into the slate, make sure you guys go ahead and check out some of the new merch we have over on the store. I got a link for that in the description. I'll also put it in the pinned comment. But the Tonight We Shall Cover tee is the brand new tee that we have, and I love it, absolutely love it. So make sure to go check that out, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into the first game here. We're looking at Minnesota taking on the Royals here. Minnesota getting the run line win yesterday. Obviously, that was one of the games that we cashed in, but they're minus 250 today on the money line. Total sitting at 7.5 runs. They've covered this line last game. Minnesota, I will say, they're kind of hit or miss when it comes to being able to bet on their run line. Now, they've covered their run line in 3 of their last 4 games, but only 5 of their last 10. I do think that they're playing a Kansas City team that just really isn't all that good. So I am going to lean towards the run line of Minnesota. I don't know if we necessarily pulled the trigger on it today. Pablo Lopez on the mound for the Twins. He's 1-2 with a 3.0 ERA. And Jordan Lyles on the mound for the Royals. 0-4 with a 4.3-1 ERA. So I'm going to lean towards Minnesota, minus 1.5. I don't know if I love the odds there. You're going to be looking at right around minus 118 to minus 120. So that could be one of our final plays, but keep an eye on the pin comment to see if we do pull the trigger. That ultimately is going to be the lean, though. And then in terms of the total, like I said, 7.5 runs. They covered it yesterday, but it was all thanks to Minnesota scoring 7 runs. Kansas City only dropped in 1 there. I guess I'm going to lean towards the over, but I don't totally love that pick whatsoever, just being completely transparent. All right, next we got the Chicago Cubs taking on the Marlins here. Marlins are underdogs at home, plus 104. Total sitting at 7.5 runs. The Cubs coming off taking 2 of 3 against San Diego, and Miami lost 3 of 4 against Atlanta. They won game 4 there in that series, but other games were not even all that close. Atlanta covered their run line in those 3 wins of the 4. I do think that this is a good spot for the Cubs. Stroman on the mound. He's 2-2 with a 2.17 ERA, and then Jesus Luzardo on the mound for the Marlins, 2-1 with a 3.6 ERA. I am going to lean towards the under in this one. Cubs failed to have that 8-run mark here with San Diego in their last game and ended 5-2, and just barely over the mark for the Miami Marlins. So 2 good pitchers on the mound. I'm going to lean towards the under. I'm also going to take a peek at the Cubs. I think there's some good value here. They've won 2 of their last 3 games, and you're getting some decent odds around minus 115 there for Chicago. All right, Detroit hosting Baltimore here. Detroit plus 114 at home on the money line. Another total sitting at 7.5 runs. Baltimore wins game 1 yesterday, 7-4. Like I said, the Tigers were a team that were crushing the run line, but now they've dropped that plus 1.5 run line 2 games in a row. I'm going to go ahead and spin this one totally on its tail. I know that we leaned Detroit yesterday, but I'm going to lean towards the Orioles here. Rodriguez on the mound for both teams. Grayson Rodriguez on the mound for the Orioles, and Detroit has Eduardo Rodriguez on the mound for them. I'm going to lean towards Baltimore here on the money line. I can't trust Detroit anymore. Baltimore has won 9 of their last 10 games, so we got to give credit where it's due. And you're getting some decent odds at minus 130. This Detroit team, yes, they've been a good run line team, but obviously not a very good money line team here, as they're only 9-15 on the season. So I'm going to lean towards the Orioles, on the money line. And then in terms of the total, 7.5 runs, I think this one actually does go up and over. Moving on, we got Pittsburgh taking on Washington. Washington at home. They're plus 117 on the money line. Total is sitting at 8.5 runs in this one. Pittsburgh coming off of a nice game, or a nice series, I should say, against the Dodgers. The only loss they had was game 1 in that series, and they lost by 1 run. They had the lead for most of the game as well. So for 90% of that entire series, they did dominate because they win game 2 8-1, and then they win game 3 6-2. Washington actually taking 2 of 3 against the Mets as well. These two teams both playing really good when it comes to being underdog run line teams here. Now, the only issue with that is that Pittsburgh, now they are favorites here, and they've still covered that minus 1.5 in 7 of their last 10 games, but they're playing a Washington team that has been covering that plus 1.5 plenty on the year. So this one I'm kind of conflicted on. I don't love the money line. I mean, I do lean Pittsburgh money line, but I don't really love that play. I think that Washington could definitely win this game. If anything, for some value, I would look at Pittsburgh minus 1.5, but I honestly think that, you know, you could tell me in the comments, and maybe you guys don't like hearing this, but if someone was like, I'm picking Washington money line, I'd understand. If someone told me I'm picking Pittsburgh money line, I get it. If someone told me they were picking Washington plus 1.5, I'd be like, yeah, I understand. And then if someone told me they were picking Pittsburgh minus 1.5, I'd be like, I get it. So I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think that this is a pretty sharp game when it comes to where they've put the odds, who's favored, who's not, that type of thing. So I am gonna lean on the Pittsburgh side of things, money line, and then also for value, the minus 1.5. But I could be a psycho. I could be crazy. But in terms of a total 8.5 runs, this Pittsburgh team has been scoring a decent amount of runs, but the Washington team is just a little too inconsistent for me, so I'm going to slightly lean towards the over, but I doubt that becomes a final play. Next game we're jumping into is going to be Toronto taking on the Mariners here. Blue Jays on the season 16-9. They got Manoah on the mound. They are coming off of a sweep of the Chicago White Sox. They've won 4 in a row here. Seattle dropping 2 of 3 against Philly, which was somewhat surprising, somewhat not surprising, but I'm going to lean towards Toronto at home here. They are the hotter ball club. I like Manoah on the mound. He's 1-1 with a 5.13 ERA. The only thing that worries me, good pitcher on the mound on the opposition here. Luis Castillo, 2-0 with a 1.5 ERA. I think this one is a low-scoring game, so we're going to take a peek at the under, but I do think that this is a good Toronto Blue Jays spot. Yes, they lose the pitcher's duel today, but I do think that they're playing better basketball here. Again, you can get them around minus 108, minus 105 on most sportsbooks. This is a pretty much a pick 'em on sportsbooks here. And then, like I said, in terms of a total, I do think this one ends up sticking under. All right, we got the New York Mets taking on the Braves. Mets plus 130 at home. Total 7.5 runs. Like we just talked about, the Mets lost 2 of 3 against the Washington Nationals there. They split the series before that against the Giants. Atlanta coming off of taking 3 out of their 4 against Miami. We also discussed that earlier there as well. I do think that there's some value here with the Braves today. They got Fried on the mound. He's 1-0 with a 0.6 ERA. David Peterson on the mound for the Mets. Not really afraid of him. 1-3 with a 7.3 ERA. And you can get Atlanta right now at right about minus 140. So I do think that we're going to keep riding this Atlanta wagon. I like the spot for them today. I don't think that this Mets team has shown any sort of inconsistency. I like Atlanta on the money line, but I also don't hate them on the run line here. I think they win this game by 2 to 3 runs. And then in terms of the total, I think Atlanta's going to score a decent amount of runs. We're looking at 7.5 there. I'm going to lean towards the over as well. Atlanta in their last 4 games here, 11 runs scored, 7 runs, 6 runs, 4 runs. So they've covered their half of that, if not, broke that entire total altogether on their own, but they've covered at least their half of that in their last 4 games. New York coming off a game in which they scored 9 runs. Let's keep that offensive momentum going and put up a couple points here, but I do think that's going to be a lopsided affair in favor of Atlanta today. Guys, I want to take a quick second to talk to you about Outlier, my favorite sports betting research tool. We're going to jump in to the Outlier screen at the end of the video so you guys can see how it works. They have it both for the web and the phone, but it has become my favorite sports betting research tool from a player props perspective, but also from a game picks perspective. You can see how damn visual it is. It is a really big help, and they do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of finding the spots, finding the value, and finding the plays. So if you want to check out Outlier, I got a link for that in the description. I'll also put it in the pinned comment along with the plays so you guys can easily go check it out. With that link, you can sign up for a 7-day free trial. Definitely worth checking it out. I'm sure you guys will go in and go, Wow, this is what I have been missing. It really makes everything more efficient and optimizes your time when looking into games. So go check out Outlier. I do highly, highly recommend that. And I say it all the time. I wouldn't push something on this channel if I didn't use it or believe in it. So I'm okay to just go in at the end of this video and show you guys the tool. Like, the proof's in the pudding. You will see it visually. So stick around till the end of the video. Let's get back on track here. We're looking at the Red Sox taking on the Cleveland Guardians here for game one of this series. Red Sox coming off of a tough series against Baltimore. They dropped 2 of the 3. A couple of those games were close. Last game, not so much. Cleveland coming off of dropping 2 of 3 against Colorado, which was very unexpected. They did bounce back and win their last game 4-1, but they're not playing the best of baseball as of right now. And Red Sox have been playing decent run line baseball when they are underdogs on the +1.5. They've covered it in 8 of their last 10 games here. Pavetta's on the mound. He's one of the only, I don't even know if I can use this word, but only trustworthy pitchers on the Red Sox. He's 1-1 with a 4.5 ERA. And then the Guardians have Bieber on the mound, who's 1-1 with a 3.23 ERA. I do think that this game, probably ends up in favor of the Guardians, but I like Red Sox on the run line here. Again, you're getting decent odds, -135, and they've covered that +1.5 when they're underdogs in 8 of their last 10 games. There's too much value there to miss. And then in terms of the total, 8.5 runs. I think you have 2 decent grinded out type pitchers on the mound. Can this one go over? Yes. Will it? I don't think so. I think it's going to stick to the under in this one. I think that 8.5 is kind of a little bit too high given the circumstances here, and I think it's going to be a close game, like 4-3 or something like that. All right, Tampa Bay taking on the White Sox. Tampa Bay crushed them yesterday, 14-5. This Tampa Bay team is rolling. They're 21-5 on the season. They have Eflin on the mound for them today. He's 3-0 with a 2.8 ERA. Very sneaky good start to the season there. Chicago has Lucas Giolito on the mound here, 1-2 with a 4.5 ERA. Giolito, whatever the hell his name is. Gelato, the yogurt, frozen yogurt, whatever that is. Chicago is +134 at home here, total sitting at 8.5 runs. I actually do think that there's some value here. I think you can get Tampa Bay at a good mark. I know that they covered, the run line yesterday, but still, they've only covered 5 of their -1.5 run line in the last 10, whereas they've won 7 of their last 10 games. So I'm gonna pull the trigger on the money line. -144 isn't all that bad for what you're getting. I could easily see this being like it was yesterday, -160. I could see it go beyond that, -165. The fact that, the White Sox don't have Dylan Cease pitching, and then it's like, okay, well then who's gonna pick? Kopech, Giolito, you know what I mean? So that obviously is the reason and rationale probably for, them still being heavy favorites. But 149 I still think is good value. So I do truly think that this could be a good spot for the Rays to kind of double down in there and win this one again. But again, I do, hesitate to jump at the run line. Keep that in mind. I don't think it's going to be necessarily a blowout like it was yesterday. Then in terms of the total, over 8.5, I know that this is a crazy, crazy pick. Will sound psycho alert alarm, but I do think this game actually sticks towards the under. Now, we saw Tampa Bay score 14 runs yesterday, but the previous games before that, they only scored 0 runs over those 2 games. So it's not like they were just offensive wagon in the latter part of that series against Houston. And then Chicago also, their last 2 games of their series against Toronto scored 0 runs. So these 2 teams are not just used to scoring points or runs as of late. So I do think this one is an under type spot. You have a good pitcher on the mound for the Rays as well. I like the under here. Next game, the Texas Rangers and the Yankees. I'm a Red Sox fan, so it's going to be tough for me to say, but the Yankees come through clutch, and I love them for it. We had a revenge spot against the Rangers, and the Yankees said, we got you, Ev. We'll cover for you. And we go out there and win that game. They win 4-2. Garrett Cole had a decent run there. Texas obviously lost us 3 straight games when they played Cincinnati. We took them money line in every single game, and they lost it. In fact, pretty much choked most of those games, at least 2 of them for sure. The Yankees come back and clutch it out for us. Today, they're big time underdogs, though, in this game. Texas -200 in this game. The total is at 7 runs, which again makes sense. These Yankees games have not been trending towards the over. I do think that this is a spot where the Yankees, DeGrom on the mound for the Rangers against Clark Schmidt. I don't love that matchup. I think the Texas Rangers have the obvious edge when it comes to pitching there. He's 2-0 with a 3.04 ERA compared to Schmidt's 0-2 with a 6.3 ERA. But what I will say is I think this Yankees team can keep this game close. Maybe I still hate the Texas Rangers. Maybe. So I'm going to lean towards the Yankees plus 1.5. The Texas Rangers aren't out of my head yet. Do they have real estate? For sure. So I'm going to lean towards Yankees plus 1.5. In terms of the total, 7 runs. If Texas is favored by this much, and I think that the Yankees are going to keep this game close, I have to go towards the over here because Texas only scoring 2 runs yesterday. Even if they score, 2 more runs, this is an over on this line. So I'm going to lean towards the over in this one. All right, Philadelphia taking on the Astros. Astros 14-11 on the season. Valdez on the mound for them today. He's got a 2.25 ERA, but he's only got a 2-2 record. Aaron Nola on the mound for the Phillies, 5.4 ERA with a 1-2 record. Philly coming off of taking 2 of the 3 games against the Mariners in their last series. Houston taking 2 of 3 against Tampa Bay. They did shut out, not against Tampa Bay. Yeah, Tampa Bay. They did shut them out too on those last 2 games, which is worth noting here. In terms of a value here, Houston is minus 140 on the money line at home. They have won 7 of their last 10 games, but so has Philly. So Philly, I expect Philly to keep this game close. I don't love Houston on the run line, but I do like them on the money line. I could totally see them winning this game, and then I also like the under as well. 7.5 kind of scares me. I'll be completely honest. I could see this easily landing right around 7 or 8 runs, which there's the line. So I'd probably stick away from the total, but I do slightly lean towards the under. All right, the Angels travel to Milwaukee here. Wade Miley on the mound for the Brewers. He's a 1.96 ERA on a nice 3-1 start to the season in terms of a record. Anderson on the mound for the Angels, 1-0 with a 7.2 ERA. Milwaukee heavy, not too heavy, but heavy favorites in this one, minus 135. LA took 3 against Oakland again. We kind of dropped that yesterday. They won 8-7. We had them on the run line. Milwaukee coming off of only winning 1 of their last 4 games. They've won 2 of their last 5, dropping 2 of 3 against Detroit. Do I think that they bounce back here? Yes, but I think this is a good spot for LA run line. I don't think Milwaukee necessarily runs away with it. I do like them on the money line, but I do think LA has a good spot here. When underdogs on the run line, so plus 1.5, they have covered that in 8 of their last 10 games. And in terms of the total, we're looking at 9 runs. I think this one actually does end up going up and over, and we see double digits in this one today. All right, the Rockies are taking on the Diamondbacks. Rockies minus 111 here on the money line at home. Total all the way up there at 11 runs, which obviously they are playing in Colorado here. Arizona, I do think is a good spot, but I think the Rockies return home after winning 2 of 3 in their last series against the Guardians. It's not like they beat a bunch of nobodies. They played a pretty good team. So I kind of like Colorado plus the 1.5 on the run line at home here. In their last 7, they've covered that 5 times, one being the underdog. Does Arizona take this win? I actually do think Arizona takes the win, but I don't know if they necessarily go out there and rout them. So I'm going to kind of lean a little more strongly towards Colorado on the run line, getting the 1.5, keeping this to a 1-run game. And then if they can pull out a win, obviously even better. We feel safe with that. But I do think that this is a tough spot. I think Arizona wins the game, but Colorado covers the run line. And then in terms of the total, 11 runs. Obviously, you got to consider the over, but I will say these teams haven't necessarily had their bats on fire, regardless of altitude. So I'm going to lean towards the under here until we can get proved, until it's proved to us that these bats can work, because neither one of these teams have been scoring a bunch of runs as of late. All right, we got Oakland taking on the Cincinnati Reds here. Cincinnati, as favorites on their run line, have not been great. They've only covered the minus 1.5 in 8 and 2 of their last 10 here. Oakland, even as underdogs, plus 1.5, they've only covered in 3 of their last 10. I'm fairly conflicted in this game, so I'm just going to lean towards the A's here on the money line at plus money. They're plus 109 on the graphic. We've seen them at plus 130 on other sports books. This is one where I don't really have a feel for it. I've had a tough time, and you guys know that, I had a tough time grasping this Reds team this season. This is just another game where I'm kind of on the fence about it. So I'm going to lean towards where I think the value is, and that's going to be the A's on the money line. In terms of the total 8.5, I think this one does go over. That I'm pretty confident in, but aside from this game, I'm really just following the plus money. All right, guys, and then we have our last game on the slate before we jump in, and I want to show you and walk you guys through what Outlier has to offer. But we got the Dodgers taking on the Cardinals here. Dustin May on the mound for the Dodgers, 3.07 ERA, going up against Jack Flaherty, who started the year hot, kind of cooled off just a little bit, but he's 2-2 with a 3.29 ERA. This is another one of those games where I think that the Dodgers do bounce back after dropping those 2 games against Pittsburgh, but I don't necessarily think that they blow them out. The Dodgers, when they have won, they've only won by more than 2 runs Marlins 4 times in their last 10 games, whereas St. Louis, when they've been plus 1.5 on the run line, have covered that in 6 of their last 10. So I like the Dodgers money line way more than I do anything in this game, but I wouldn't, knock someone for taking Seattle on the run line at plus 1.5. And then in terms of the total, it is 9 runs. I think you can get the over for even odds on plenty of sportsbooks as well. So I'm going to lean towards the over there and follow a little bit of the money there. But guys, that's going to wrap it up for the slate. But I do want to jump in and walk you guys through the Outlier app that we have here on the computer. It's also awesome on your phone as well if you guys do choose to check it out. But again, I got a link for Outlier in the description of this video as well as the pinned comment. But let's go ahead. This is what you'll see when you first get to the home screen. You can see MLB and you can see all of these trending plays here. For example, Mike Trout has failed to exceed 0.5 RBIs in 13 of his last 15 games. That's interesting. So you can go in and dig in how he's been doing. And yeah, he hasn't been getting many RBIs. He's hit the under here in 71% of games this season. 8 of his last 10 against his opponent. If he had any track record against the opponent, Milwaukee, this year, you would see that. We could see last season he hit the under here as well. If you did like this, you can see this 2 sportsbooks odds over here. You can also just add it to your picks. But we're gonna go ahead and say, hey, Caesars, let's lock that in. If we wanted to make this a pick, it really is super simple. It puts it in there right there. I don't have to go find the bet through all the filters and stuff. So it's a very, very cool tool, guys. And we can also see, you can look at it from game perspective. For example, we're talking about the Cubs, in their last 10 games when the over-under is set at 7.5. They've hit the over in 7 of their last 10 there. The Marlins coming off of doing it 5 straight. So it's very, very informative, very, very visual. And I really do like that. And they have the prop finder where you can look at everything under the sun. If we wanted to know Nick Pivetta and look at his stats, you can see Nick Pivetta here. It's going to filter to all of his stats, and looks like one of the top ones here in terms of how it's been trending has been getting under 16.5 outs. You can either add that to your picks like we did before. You can also click in and check it out, and you can see he's been hitting the under in 9 of his last 10. This season, he's hit the under in 3 of his last 4. Very, very visual, guys. I highly encourage you guys to go check it out, and that's all I have for you guys today. So if you did enjoy the video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.